Welcome guys to episode number 3 of the Rize. Now this one's going to be covering my full off season, everything from training, nutrition, sups, and literally everything that I'm doing from now up until probably around Feb time to make as many improvements as I can for whenever we next decide to compete. So before I go into everything training and nutrition wise, I thought it'd be good to first of all kind of cover a little bit about what the goal is with the off season and specifically kind of what areas we're looking to bring up to be basically a more competitive athlete. And something that I've created my whole mindset around for this off season and the next prep is about being as competitive as possible. Because the first prep, I always think it's about finding where you stand, seeing if you enjoy that process, and the next time round, you're standing up there to be competitive, bring a completely different package from your last time, but then also make yourself or put yourself in a position where you can go for higher placings and again achieve more within your competitive journey. So feedback last year was a little bit more back thickness and density, a little bit more overall quad and hamstring development. So the training split that I'm on at the moment has been basically put together to bring up those kind of areas. And the main way we're doing that is through more frequency with them areas and just more variation with the exercises. Because I think one thing that I've got, or one thing I've been guilty of in the past, is just getting really comfortable doing the same exercises over and over again. And whilst it's an easy way to make progress, I sometimes think if you're just sticking to one thing, you're only going to get strong within that one area. So one thing I've really tried to vary in my training this time round is a lot more variety when it comes to exercises that we're using. So off season, I reckon we're going to be looking to do around 2 or 3 to make the improvements needed. So this will be the first official push-up, which I'm currently 4 weeks in as of now. So overall plan for this off season, we're looking at pushing for 20 weeks. And the reason I say 20 weeks is that's always been a good time frame for me to be on cycle, pushing up food to get the best results. I've never personally seen any bad blood work that needed rectifying from being on cycle for that period of time. And I also feel like 20 weeks is a really good time frame to slowly push up food and also manage body compositions as well without getting too soft. So for me, that 20-week period is like a solid amount of time to make necessary improvements. So as I say, we'll probably look to do 2 or 3 of them, of course, of the back end of this year, and then maybe 2 in kind of 2025. So 20 weeks, we're currently 4 in, so 16 weeks left. And again, the main aim of this is to literally use training to dictate how that 20 weeks goes. I'm not going to be making PED changes or food changes just for the sake of it. I just want to be making them at a point I feel like I need them based on feedback to, again, really maximize the amount of progress I can over that 20 weeks. So we're 4 weeks in, 16 weeks left to go, and that takes us up until around February time to bring that to a close. So first off, 20-week push, and now I'm going to move into a little bit about the training. So training split. First of all, let me run you through that. And I was just saying to Mango, I don't actually even remember the split off the top of my head yet, so I'm going to pull it up and run you through it. So pull and lower on a Monday, Tuesday's push, Wednesday's rest, Thursday's lower with a hinge, Friday's push, Saturday's pull with a little bit of extra quads on there on top, Sunday's rest. So 5 days on, 2 off, and that setup works really well for me in terms of just balancing the amount of workload I need to do and also being able to recover in between the sessions as well. So that's the kind of main split at the moment. And again, like I said, varying the exercises. We've got a variety of different kind of focuses when it comes to the pull work. So the pull on Monday is very kind of like machine-based work. And then obviously the pull on Thursday is more of a hinge-based work, more so for thickness. So again, trying to cover all angles of pull work to, again, just really kind of bring up that area. So that's the current training split. Now, in terms of actual exercises, it's very compound based to start with. So we're looking at kind of 2 to 3 compounds for the start of each session. And then we go into more kind of isolation and pump based work. And I think one thing that I've changed my mindset on a little bit over the years of training is about logbooking everything. Now, I think logbooking is important and it definitely serves a purpose for holding you accountable to your weights and what you've got to progress. But I also think there's an element of obsessiveness if you're tracking everything down to like lateral raises and all the kind of minor lifts. I know a lot of people that do and have great success with it, but I've found sometimes for myself, having that mindset of tracking everything can sometimes make the session seem a little bit robotic. So the balance that I've struck is tracking the main compounds and 50 to 60% of the session, and the other 40% is all based on kind of just feel and giving as much as I can once that initial workload's done. Okay, so goals for the off season and what we're looking to bring up specifically to make me a more competitive bodybuilder. Now, like most people, the ultimate goal is size. And whilst it's easy to get caught up thinking that we need a little bit more size here, a little bit more size there, ultimately, for me, being 6'3", I need to have a massive off season to just fill up my frame basically. So priority number one is just to grow everywhere. Then to go into more of the specifics, areas that we're looking to really bring up to further enhance my own physique is going to be back thickness and width, quad, hamstrings, and as always, calves development is something that I want to work on as well. The way I've set my training up is to kind of really get as much frequency as I can with back and legs. And again, just splitting that in kind of 3 times a week at the moment. The training split I've got is going to be like 1 push, 1 delt, 3 back and 3 kind of leg days split in between that week. When it comes to body weight, although I'm not a massive believer that you need to hit a certain weight because weight doesn't mean that you're have a certain amount of size, I need to have enough off season so I can comfortably be 15 to 20 pounds at least up on my previous stage weight. So we stepped on stage around 219 to 220 pounds. For me, I need to be 240, close to 250 to be competitive in my kind of height class. So that's what we're looking at for the off season, guys. A little bit more back, a little bit more width, and overall kind of lower development as well to just bring up everything within my physique. So nutrition. Now, I like to run 2 different days of food. So it's predominantly a training day food and then a rest day food. I know a lot of people like this setup as well. And for anybody that doesn't run their food like this or is looking to set up a nutrition to really kind of bring up their performance, having a setup where you have more calories on a training day, which is obviously the day you're expending more calories, compared to a rest day, is always an easy way to go. And that's kind of for myself how I like to separate things up, as basically appetite's usually a little bit higher on a day I train anyway, so it makes the food more manageable to get in across both days. Now, training day food is currently sitting around 3,100. Rest day food is sitting at around 2,800. So I think I started on around 2.7 at week 1, and over the course of 2 weeks now, I've slowly pushed up to 3.1, and that's a really comfortable spot for me. I do fasted blood glucose levels 3 times a week, and they're always kind of coming in at around 3.6 to 3.8. So everything from a blood sugar standpoint is on point, which also matches up with appetite levels being bang on for each meal. And I've changed my mindset around food a little bit this push up. I think before, and don't get me wrong, it's probably needed, of pushing food for the sake of it, just thinking I'll eat as much as I can physically get in to grow as much muscle, when you realize over time that you can only grow muscle at the rate you can progress in the gym. So overfeeding yourself with food and giving your body an excess of calories it doesn't really need is only gonna make that push up shorter because you just get softer quicker. So mindset towards food is again keeping blood glucose levels in a sweet spot, which helps with everything from partitioning to training performance, etc. And just being more patient with food increases. Just as I say, letting training be the real dictator for when we increase food and if that is warranted through performance basically. So that's where food's sitting at. And again, I haven't really got a target that I'm looking to go for when it comes to food or how much we're getting in. As I say, it's all going to be relevant to how everything goes throughout that phase. Okay, so supplements, the one everyone wants to hear. So starting relatively low on the initial part of this push up with a cycle. And this is something that is the first time I've actually spoke about it on camera. So I feel like before going into my current cycle, it's worth talking a little bit about the background so you can kind of know like where this is at in reference to what's been done before. And PEDs is always something I've been extremely cautious of. I know from seeing and hearing horror stories, it was always something that I wanted to be as on point as I could, knowing that I train for the love of bodybuilding. I don't take PEDs for the sake of taking PEDs. That's a added string to the bow to assist my competitive journey. So again, I've always been relatively moderate with using PEDs. So first things first, whatever I'm taking in this isn't a guideline for you to use. It's all relevant to where I'm at as well. So starting with test, sitting at 300 milligrams a week, split 4 times across the week. Primo, 150, massed 150, again, split 4 times across the week as well, just to really level out that kind of like hormone management. So we're not kind of getting like peaks and troughs throughout the week as well. So that leaves us at kind of 600 milligrams total to start. And again, for where I'm at, my age, my cycle period of usage is relatively low. And again, it's one of those ones where the longer that you do this, the more you realize that stuff, yeah, it's important, but it's not the be all and end all. What makes a difference is your food and your training. Hence the reason I've put this section at the end, as again, it is a little added extra on top. As if the fundamentals aren't nailed, you're not gonna make any progress no matter what you take. So that's where injectables are at. In terms of everything else, we've got a baseline daily metformin in, which is again a staple year round. And for anyone that doesn't know what metformin is, it's basically an insulin sensitizer. So it works as like a GDA, which again is a glucose disposing agent, to help shuttle the carbohydrates that you consume, especially in an off-season setting, basically into your muscle cells. What tends to happen when you consume carbs is it goes to one of three places. It's either used as energy instantly, stored in your muscle cells, or stored as body fat. And what using something like metformin does is it helps shuttle the nutrients into your muscle cells to, again, one, assist with performance and help keep body compositions in a good spot when you're in a period of time pushing food. So metformin's in every evening, and I use that with a lot of clients as well, as it is a natural supplement you can take, given you can find the right source to get it. And you can, as I say, compete naturally using that as well. So it's a real nice staple to add in to, again, just assist your progress as a performance athlete. Next is telmisartan. Again, that's a blood pressure modulator, which again is used in conjunction with a cycle, as you can see blood pressure spike when increasing body weight, increasing your injectables as well. So that's a staple year round whenever on cycle to, again, just kind of modulate that blood pressure. So that's where the base of the cycle's at. Now, in terms of like the longevity of that cycle, I reckon based on my previous prep, we'll probably go up to around 800 milligrams total, which is again only 200 milligrams on top of that base cycle over the course of that 20 weeks. But again, same as what I said with the food, the cycle isn't something that you just put in or increase for the sake of it. Always use your feedback to dictate when you're making these changes and when you need that extra boost from whether it's training volume, food, or more PEDs. So that's where the subs are at, guys. Now, other bits on the side of that, we got standard multivitamin, omega 3s, vitamin D, Digest Max, and glutathione, all used again on a daily basis alongside everything nutrition-wise to fill any gaps within anything that isn't consumed via diet, and to also kind of give a little bit of an added extra within off-season to help digestion, and things like glutathione, which are a powerful antioxidant to help offset any kind of oxidative stress that can come through training life and also PEDs as well. Now, a couple I haven't got on here as well is Vital Support by JP and Love Heart. Both again, always used in conjunction with a cycle to help manage things like liver, kidneys, heart health, whenever you are going to be running a riskier side of performance by using PEDs. So that's supplements, guys. Now, moving on to a little bit about mistakes and what I'm doing differently in this off season to previous. Now, I've touched on it a lot on this video, and the first one's going to be not just making changes for the sake of making changes. I think it's so easy to get in that mindset of thinking that more's going to do more. And whether that's coming through increasing your food, increasing the workload that you're doing in the gym, or looking to add in extra PEDs because you think that's what's going to get you more progress, when really what is going to get you progress is nailing the fundamentals down to a T and making sure that you can lock in for them for a 20-week period. Because it's easy when you're motivated, and it's easy when you're seeing changes to do a good 4-6 weeks and then potentially not be as on it as you was before, or use that flexibility that you have in the off season a little bit too much, so then your appetite goes to shit, then you stop eating your meals, and then everything kind of just falls down from there. So again, it's all about using your feedback and assessing what you're doing on a week-to-week basis to decide what changes that you make. So as I said, food hasn't gone massively high. I think my last off-season food was close to 6,000, and my personal opinion, it was probably pointless at that point, because although I was eating the calories, the odds I was using them was probably quite slim. So I'm getting far more progress now from a strength and visual perspective, using half of the calories, but just being more on it with the quality of food that I'm using and the routine and the times that I'm having them. Now, next one would be, as I say, the training. So I've previously used like what you call an escalation model within training, which is basically where you start at a minimal effective volume and increase to like a maximal effective volume. Now, this is something that I've also changed my mind on based on current like life situations and stress, show weekends, things like that, because I can't always manage the external factors which impact stress and recovery. So the best way that I find to manage this isn't to have a set volume that I'll look to increase. It's just to literally base it on how I feel. And this is a bit of a hard one to teach because it's something that you really gain through experience, and it's hard to know whether you're just telling yourself you need a break or you physically need it. So again, it's something that you'll learn through time, in that being able to read your body and knowing that when there's nothing left in the tank, pushing more isn't productive, and knowing when to push more when you feel good as well. So again, I'll use the baseline training that I've got set, but if there's a course of like, let's say when we got back from Ireland where we'd done 2-3 days of traveling, flying, that first session back won't be the normal amount of volume. It will just be relevant to that weekend and doing what I can for that session, which feels good. So again, everything's based on how you are in that moment, what's going on in that period of time, rather than having like a, let's say, set schedule for I'm going to increase this at this time, food's going up this week and that week. Just base it on all what you need in that moment in time as you go through that progression within that phase. So before we wrap up this video, I thought I'd do a quick 3 to 5 points on how you can personally maximize your off-season progress to get the most amount of muscle possible from that phase. Now, first things first, do not rush. I think it's so easy to get in that mindset of, I want to get as big as possible, as quick as I can, and you end up rushing that process of putting on size. Something that's always stuck with me is you can only grow muscle at the rate you can get strong. So if you're trying to overeat because you think eating's going to make you grow, yes, it will to some degree, but you want to have that fine balance of eating to your training needs. If you're progressing week to week in the gym, but consuming an excess of 500, 600, 700 calories, your body's only going to use a small margin of them calories to recover from that training session. So if you're overeating, then excess calories are only going to be stored as body fat, which means one, that off-season comes to a halt, and second, the dieting phase you have to do is going to be longer to get that body fat off. So slow and steady always wins the race. Be patient, let your training dictate your food, and just take it slow as you go throughout. Point number 2, make sure you keep a good quality of nutrition. I think it's, again, easy to get in that mindset of, I'm bulking or I'm going to be more flexible with this and that, and you end up incorporating foods which may not serve the ultimate purpose of giving your body what it needs nutritionally. So a typical trend I tend to see is during a diet phase, someone will be on it with their greens, on it with their veg. As soon as off season comes, greens, veg come out, just beef, rice or chicken rice. And there's elements of greens and nutrition quality that's going to get you gains. So keeping on top of your nutrition quality is essential in off season, just as much as it is during a diet or a prep. Point number 3, save your supplements and save your PED exposure for your diets or for your preps. Your most anabolic tool to grow muscle is going to be training performance and nutrition. Yes, PEDs are going to help, but you'd be better using or exposing yourself to more PEDs in a diet phase where muscle retention is going to want to be your main focus rather than when you're eating a surplus of calories and able to train effectively. So save your PED exposure and the variety of PEDs that you use for a diet phase. Just use a base, test and a DHT for your off-season phases. Number 4, don't chase a body weight. A mistake I made so many times in the past is thinking that when I reach this weight, I'm going to be this big. And it doesn't work like that. Your body weight's relative to where you're at in that moment in time. So let your body weight come up alongside slow progressions of food, slow progressions of training. Whatever body weight you end up at the end of that phase is what you can do within that time period. So don't stress or don't rush trying to get to a body weight thinking that once you get there, you qualify for a certain amount of muscle. The 5th and last point is going to be managing your training sessions. Now, again, going into an off-season phase, your motivation is going to be high. Your excitement to get big is going to be an all-time high. And this can be a time where you want to rush your progressions in the gym. So you may get on a lift and you're week 2 on that exercise and you're thinking, shit, this feels good, I'm going to go for 3-4 reps this time. You take the 3-4 reps, then next week you can only get 2 reps less. And making these massive jumps in weight and reps is only going to mean that it's harder to then maintain and linearly progress. You may get a massive jump up initially, just pushing through sheer motivation and that initial increase in food, but the longevity of them progressions is going to be smaller, rather than if you take micro steps across a long period of time, is going to be far more beneficial and sustainable for your progress over time. Because one thing you'll find is if you rush your strength progressions, the harder that's going to be to maintain when you go through that diet phase, rather than just taking it slow and steady, and again, letting everything happen during the duration of that time period, rather than rushing to cram it all into 4 or 5 weeks. So I hope that makes sense, guys. If anyone's got any questions on any of them points, my supplements, my off seasons, drop a comment below and I'll come back to you on there. Thanks for watching.